Yeah. You want me to share something for you, Jay, or?
No, I'm having to do all this from my little tiny laptop. So the agenda, I'm going to attempt to bring it up here.
How's everybody doing? This is Tom.
Hi, Tom.
Hey.
So it looks like we have a good crowd tonight. Looks like we're only missing Rachel and Josh. So thank you all for coming. So our agenda for tonight, public comment. So is there any member of the public or any member of the committee who would like to make a comment about any non-agenda item?
Nope.
Okay. Are there any additions or deletions to the agenda? Okay, seeing none. Are there any corrections, additions, deletions, amendments of any kind to the minutes anybody would like to make?
Let me move the minutes for 2/22/23.
Okay, we have a motion to move the minutes. Do we have a second?
Okay, second.
Hey, Duncan, did you get the motion of the seconder? Okay, are there any comments on the agenda? Kara, go ahead.
Can you just repeat who was present at that meeting?
Josh, Jeff, Rachel, Tom, Jay, Kara, and Mary.
Thank you.
Okay, we have a motion and a second for the
Wasn't I
minutes.
there? I was at the last meeting, wasn't
Oh,
I?
I'm sorry.
This is February 22nd. Right? Is that the one that we're approving or no? Are we approving? the
That's
la-
when I moved.
That's what's on the agenda, is February 22nd.
I believe Molly was there. I'm pretty
Is
sure
that
she
the-
was.
Is that the one that Chris Cole was at?
No,
Oh. Okay, maybe I missed one, sorry.
Okay.
The last one I went to was the Transportation Committee was there, so maybe I did
You're
miss it.
right. The last one Chris was not at.
Okay, sorry.
Okay, so thanks for bringing that up. That's good to check. Any other questions or comments? Okay, seeing none, please state your name and your vote. for
Mary,
adopting the
aye.
minutes.
Jeff, I.
Kara, aye.
I.
Molly abstain.
Eric abstain.
Jay, aye. Did I miss anybody? Like not. Okay. Let's move to the second item on our agenda. Bring that back up. Okay. The second item on the agenda, this is going to be a new one for most people. This has only come up very recently. There are two things I want to say. For the first, at the select board meeting, several of you were at the other night, the request was originally stated as 100,000. We got an email from Lori Dana, chairman of the Library Board of Trustees, yesterday going 100,000. Hey, I wanted 150,000. Apparently there is a miscommunication. But that said, I think most of you are going, what is the Bruhn grant? So Jeff, Ford, would you be so good as to tell people about this?
This is actually a request from the library trustees, not from the town center committee, but what it is it Paul Bruhn? Is that his name? Paul Bruhn? He's like a giant in the historic preservation field in Vermont. So much so that Pat Leahy renamed a federal grant, the Bruhn grant, for him. These are annual grants that come up. The library trustees have applied for, or are in the process of applying. I think the deadline is the end of this month. They're applying for a grant to work on the exterior of the library, which has a lot of deferred maintenance on it. The town center committee has received estimates for it, but it's like a lot. You know, we've received over 400,000 quote to do all of the work necessary to repair the deferred maintenance on the exterior of the library, which we don't have that in the town center fund, and have not moved that forward to the select board yet at all. But not all of it anyways. So the library trustees are applying for this grant. If they get it, it's like a 50%. I don't know which way you do it, 50% grant or 100% match. And the result of it is you have to match the amount of money that you get. So if we were to get the $150,000, what they're requesting, the town would have to come up with the other $150,000 for a $300,000 project to do repairs on the exterior of the library. So what the library trustees, as I understand it, are asking us to put aside funds for that if they were to get the Bruhn grant. Is that good enough? Is that?
That sounds good. So questions for, again, Jeff is not the library trustee. He's the Lord and guiding spirit of the town center committee, but he summed it up, I think, pretty well. I'm sure people have some questions, so you're
Yeah.
welcome to go ahead and bring those up.
I didn't read it that closely, but I did read the attachment that was included with this, with Josh's agenda that included this. It was frequently asked questions about the Paul Bruhn grant. And I thought I read, Jeff, that a match was not required. So I just want to look at that quickly to make
Let me-
sure I wasn't making that up. It says Bruhn grant frequently asked questions.
Okay, I'll try to pop
just-
that up here.
I'm trying to.
Duncan, okay, if you have it, go ahead.
Yeah, I see. It says matching funds. This grant does not require a community match, although having one strengthened the application.
Yes, I do believe that was what was said on Monday night at the select. You
Well, I
are looking,
So I'm looking at the attachment that Josh had sent with the, I think this is with the agenda. Yeah.
yeah,
with our
I'm
agenda.
sharing it right now on this.
Oh, okay, sorry.
They're gonna share, so you can just
Okay.
look it over.
Okay, so Molly is absolutely correct. Does not require a match, but having one strengthens the application.
Sure.
And
I
that's-
just think that's important piece of
Mhm.
information.
Okay. Now, one of the things that, was our stated criteria, I'm not saying let's endorse this, let's not. I just want to stipulate that one of the things we've all said many times, and it's in the enabling legislation for ARPA, is that, this money can be used as grant matching. And in fact, to get the most bang for the buck, we should prioritize grant matching where we can. So other questions or comments, Kara?
As far as the ARPA committee, as far as an ARPA committee member, I do not feel I need to give any input on this subject at all. The select board has already made the decision and already made a motion. So it's not in my hands as an ARPA committee member. I do not feel I need to endorse. I did not have a choice, so.
Did we
I'm-
officially vote as a select? I
Yes.
apologize. This was,
Yes, you
Mil-
did.
okay.
I don't recall that either, Jay.
No, I will. Duncan, you're working on the minutes.
Yeah,
Did we,
Like I said, yeah, I'm not quite there yet. I would have to look back to confirm that, but
So my
yeah, I
recollection,
don't. Go
we
ahead,
have
go
not,
ahead, Jeff.
we have not allocated any ARPA funds for any purpose whatsoever.
But didn't you approve the grant, though? You had to
Yes.
approve the grant. That's
Yeah.
what you did at the board
They
meeting.
We
approved the grant
approved-
Yeah,
we
with
approved-
with the notion of using ARPA grant
Right.
money. They
But
weren't
we did
using
not,
town center reserves. They weren't using town center reserves.
Yep.
They approved the grant
Yep.
with the use of matching ARPA money. if
no,
it-
I think we approved pursuing the grant and then referred it to the ARPA committee to decide whether this would be a good use of matching. Because as Molly has pointed out, matching is not required, but does help proposal.
Competitiveness.
Yeah.
You'll go back to the meeting minutes because it wasn't coming back to the ARPA committee.
So my understanding is what what I thought I was voting on anyways, was authorizing the town library committee to submit a grant application.
Yeah, I
That's
don't
what
have, I'm not able to go through the recording at this moment. Duncan is working on the minutes. But
I'm still stuck on the water sewer and getting through that. So my brain's still a little mixed up there, so.
okay, well, I understand because there's literally nothing more fun than water and sewer. For
Yeah.
those of you who are wondering what I'm talking about, let me just say sludge is a lot more exciting than people would think. But as far as, since we we have two different opinions of what was actually decided.
Well, can I say one thing, Jay, about my
Sure.
opinion? You all had to approve this because the deadline application date was March 31st. So either you're putting in the application that you're going to match, or you're not putting in the application you're going to match. But that is going to happen before your next select board meeting. And it was gonna happen, period. So I agree with Molly saying it doesn't have to have a match, but you approved moving it forward with the grant application that's due March 31st. So it's either gonna have a match in it or it's not gonna have a match in it.
So there's a distinction between applying for a grant and allocating money.
I
So-
understand.
So we did not allocate any money. What we did do is we approved, we authorized applying for the grant. And if we get the grant, we still have to vote to accept it. Right, so when we accept it, then we can allocate money, but until that time, no money has been allocated. That's at least my understanding of the process.
That is pretty close to my understanding too. I'm just bringing up the memo
So-
that Josh sends out. It had a draft memo, motion in it. And I think the motion was moved more or less as it was stated in the memo. So I'm just going to check to see what the verbiage was. Okay, here's the motion. I move to apply for the Bruhn grant to help fund repairs to the exterior of the library. That was the motion.
So we applied, but that does not mean that we allocated any money.
It
Right.
wasn't about allocation. It was about putting on what you were putting on the grant that you were applying for if you were matching it.
Okay, but the select board did not vote to spend any ARPA money. And Lori Dana, in her email to me,
I do agree with that, Jay. I do agree
Okay.
with that.
okay,
I think
ARPA money.
so. Though I was not at that select board meeting, but which might actually be good. Just because what I see kind of from the outside here is that the library trustees, of course, want the most competitive application they can. So they're seeing this as an opportunity, and the application isn't due till March 31st or whatever it is, right? So it's now March 22nd. So in my mind, the question is, let's say we, as this ARPA committee tonight, decide that we think it's a good use of ARPA funds. Process-wise, if we did decide and voted that yes, this is a good use, would that have to then go back to the select board to be approved to be included in the application?
technically, yes, there was brief mention at some point, it possibly may have been at almost the end of the meeting, that if we needed to warn a select board meeting to come together to officially vote, and then say, I approve, all in favor, say aye, adjourned, that so long as we give 24 hours warning, it would be legal to do that.
Okay,
I
so
think
that was considered then. Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
So process wise is one thing. The second question though is just in general, does this use of ARPA money to help match a grant to revamp the exterior of the library sound like a good use of ARPA money?
It would be
That's-
helpful to me if we pulled up the criteria or like 5 or 6 criteria, and then if we want to have this conversation.
Right. I am trying to bring up the memo, the document that was attached to the select board
While you're doing
packet.
that, Jay,
Okay, I got a question. Nobody seems to care, but I'm asking my
Okay.
question now.
Go ahead.
What time frame do we have for this $429,000? Because sometimes you have, I'm gonna give you a bid and the bid is good for 30 days, 60 days. You really have to parallel the request for money with how long the bid lasts, because if you're just gonna be throwing water at a fan, it ain't gonna work. So to know when this bid expires would be helpful so that we can get the money heading in the right direction. Thank you.
Okay,
so
I
can
am
address
bringing,
that.
go ahead, Jeff.
I can address that, Jay. So what, this is long deferred maintenance that the library trustees have tried to address for a long.
That's not
I know, I'm
the
getting,
contractor.
I know,
You already said the deferred maintenance.
I'm getting
I'm
there.
bringing up a document I think may be helpful. Jeff, go ahead though.
I'm getting there. The Town Center Committee has been trying to address some of these issues for a number of years. This past year, we put out last year, we put out a request for proposals and we got no bids. This past year, we put out a request for proposals and we got one. What the library trustees are doing is they're taking the bid that we got from Adam King, I believe it's Adam King or
So it says right there, Adam King,
Alex, I can't remember exactly who it was.
Adam King
To
of
use as a-
Acadia Construction.
To use as a budget number for the grant application. If we were to get this money, we wouldn't get it for quite a while, and you're able to hold it for quite a while. We would likely go back out to bid for specifically, and we're able to use the grant monies for whatever project that we do come up with. We're using right now, we did approve on Monday night, doing some repairs to the steeple, which was included in this, that bid originally. I think it's what, $60,000 or so, to do, repairs to the steeples, which would be taken off that $429,000 quote. But the purpose of the request from the library trustees was to apply for a grant, and if they got it, they would have to go through the process of procurement, because we probably wouldn't hear about getting this grant for, months and beyond this construction season.
I'd like to make a motion for the ARPA committee to recommend to the select board for them to use. And I think we're going to amend it to 150,000 if that's what's been communicated to the select board is the correct number. So up
Yes.
to $150,000 to match the grant if we get the grant.
Second,
And we have a motion from Kara and a second from Mary. Is there further discussion before we take the question to a vote? I would like to actually make one quick comment that's just, I think it's just for a second. It has to do with a little bit more about the nature of that funding. There are a couple strings attached, and I think they're very reasonable strings. If we get this money, if you'll note the beginning of this paragraph here, we must apply for the town library to be included in the National Historic Register. Now, our state architectural historian says it's in the state register, but it's not on the National Register. According to this, it says being on the National Register does not place restrictions on what can be done with the building. However, here's the interesting thing. Just being on the National Register does not require us to do that. But if you'll note this paragraph here at the bottom that begins preservation restoration rules, there would be there are restrictions such as a 15-year easement with the Preservation Trust of Vermont, which would require their approval, and specifically any plan changes to the exterior, and the Secretary of the Interior has standards for preservation guidelines, which Jeff, you could probably quote from memory. But I'm just saying, I don't think these are unreasonable stipulations in return for what we get. Jeff, you had some stuff to share.
Tom's got his.
Tom
hand
has
up.
his
Oh,
hand up.
Tom, I'm sorry. I need to stop sharing so I can see Tom. Go ahead, Tom.
Yeah. So I can appreciate the request. I understand it. I'm not quite, I could even see myself thinking it's a good idea, right? But we mentioned process. It was a different process. It seems to me that we're getting kind of ahead of ourselves. I mean, the folks at the library committee have known about the ARPA fund. They've known about this grant. They've known about the deferred maintenance for a long time. I guess, my question is why didn't they come to us earlier? That's kind of a process question. And the second process question I have is, are we in a spot now as a committee to say, line up all of the different requests, all of the different projects and say, okay, project 1, yes, project 2, no, project 3, yes, and things like that, and just tabulate all of the amount of funds. I mean, we've got quite a bit, 1.2 million, but that can go pretty quick depending on the nature of the project we do decide. I think I'm getting the feeling that this is kind of a, death of a thousand cuts, and before we know it, we're out of money.
Well, Tom, I take your point, and I think it's a very good point. All along, it's been understood, well, it's been fed by various people. It's never been carved in tablets on the top of Mount Sinai. That if a proposal comes along that needs immediate disbursement or accelerated disbursement, that we could proceed with the recommendations such as this one. Or another example would be digitizing the town records. We haven't released any money, and there's not an incredible overwhelming urgency there, but the sooner we start it, the sooner it's done. I don't think anybody has said so far, no, that's a bad use of the money. I did include with my picture of me at the beach, the spreadsheet that we looked at last time with the Bruhn grant match added into it. And right now, if we, well, I can share that. Why don't I?
I think I've got it, yeah.
Yeah, I just want to, if any members of the public are watching the recording subsequently, or so this spreadsheet, you'll notice at the bottom when it may take a moment to come up, that the grand total is $792,509. However, I just want to stress that that does not include the line highlighted in red. If we do not get, and we're going to be talking about the item that pertains to in this meeting, but if we do not get the TAP grant or the Bridge Street East sidewalk, then we would it would be possibly contemplated to disperse 320,000. Now, I'm going to stipulate before we go down that rabbit hole that the sidewalk, there's literally nothing that's more in the air right now than sidewalks. And so it's going to be a very, even though construction takes a while and we have a ticking clock as far as getting this money spent, there's no way we can authorize the sidewalk money right now. We may in the end wind up authorizing none. But you'll notice that even if we did not get that grant and we said, damn the torpedoes, full speed ahead, it would, if you subtract $64,000 from the number above and you add 320,000,
No,
it is still,
you can't subtract the 64 because you're still going to pay your 20% of the construction. So your
Okay.
64 is 20% and the 320 is their 80% or something like that.
well, the 320 that would be if we don't have a grant, we'd be paying 100%.
No,
But
it was
the
more than 320. I thought.
Okay.
Maybe not. Maybe I'm wrong. I apologize.
Okay, so I'm not saying where the money is all spent, we can stop work, because as you can see, we have hypotheticals, and Kara's going to bring us up to date on this stuff in a little bit. But we have hypotheticals on the recreation. We have extreme, frankly, hypotheticals on the sidewalk project. And even if all of those just happen tomorrow, we still would not be, there would still be a few pennies in the bank.
So I would point out that the town center's on that, not on that list either.
Yeah,
That is correct.
right. I mean, we haven't heard from the town center yet.
No, we're
Right.
not prepared to.
But so
present
that's why this is partially before us is, and that's why I said Tom's point is a good point. We can't act like the money is unlimited. We can't. Now, this is not the only potential source of funds, because if you've been through the budget meetings, you know that each year we do wind up with some unassigned funds.
Point of order and call the question. Let's just take a vote and
Oh,
move
sure.
on.
Let's go ahead and take a vote. Okay. Is there any-
When it's different subject matter.
Well, any other comments on this item?
Yes, I have a very specific comment or question before we vote. And that is a previous question I had, which is, I would like to look at the criteria so I can familiarize myself again, and then I'll be ready to vote.
Sure,
Okay.
you did say that, Molly. I agree. I wouldn't mind going back to that too.
Because I do believe that there is an urgency to this request. So in my mind, it is reasonable that we're looking at this. I know I understand what you're saying, Tom, and I'm glad you brought it up, about process. I think that one of the beauties about these ARPA dollars is that they do provide flexibility. And, when can we ever consider this kind of thing? We can't. So I would just like to remind myself of the criteria before I vote.
She didn't mean the library grant. She meant the,
ARPA.
ARPA
Our
criteria.
criteria.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Thank you.
Yeah, we have it in, I'm sorry, I don't have it handy, but we have it in a spreadsheet. It's like 5 or 6 things.
I apologize. I totally know what you mean. I have that here.
Thank you,
Leave
Jay.
it. Come on, computer.
I was trying to figure out your picture in this, in your email, Jay. You're down in Puerto Rico?
What he
Yeah,
said.
I'm in San Juan.
No fair,
Sorry.
but no fair.
He had to
Well,
go
as I
to
said,
his mono.
at the start of the call, it's not as much fun as one would think. Okay, here's the link coming up. I'm not sharing yet. It's still loading. I'm here cursing under my breath at my computer. I hope you enjoy it.
While we're waiting, so is it our intent to, so I would ask Tom's question. Is it our intent to start making recommendations on specific projects? Is that
Okay,
what we're gonna
let me
start
make,
doing?
I've got this. Let me share it. Before we get ahead, let's respond to Molly's question. And I know I'm going to have to zoom this in because it's quite small right now.
By the way, it's not terribly likely that we'll get this grant. Very competitive.
Oh, Grimly, stop. I'm fighting my browser here. I apologize.
That's too big.
Yeah. Okay, stop, I said. Can people read that, or do I want to?
Yeah, that's good to me.
Okay, I'm going to shut up and let you look at that.
So should we go through this, Molly, and just say yes or no to each of these criteria, you think?
Yeah. I mean, there could be disagreements but that would be great. I mean,
Number 1, I would say yes. Number 2, I would say yes. Number 3 is specifically leveraging.
yeah, and it's for capital investment, capital improvement, right?
Well, it's not necessarily an improvement, it's a repair.
Yeah, but it's an investment in a capital structure.
It becomes a capital improvement.
Yeah, yeah. And it should be long-lived, I would assume, if it's a new roof and.
Better be.
Yeah, and those capital projects may result in increased public safety, probably because some of the pieces, because it'll improve right now, there's holes from the exterior of the building into the interior building, which could create mold and mildew. Public wellness, so it hits all of those criteria.
What about
not-
revenue? What about number 6?
Mhm.
Revenue? No, maybe not.
Yeah, I don't
No.
think that one.
That's,
Okay.
yeah, I had that one highlighted because that seems like the biggest gap to me.
Technically, it does if it saves you on your expenses, because we would have to be spending this out of increasing revenues. So by reducing your expenses, you're increasing your revenues.
So yeah, I think I think there's an argument to be made for that. By the way, these are necessary repairs that have been deferred for a long time.
Oh, I think, yeah. Okay, thank you. This was very helpful. Thank you.
I just want to make sure every product doesn't have to hit every single one of these criteria.
Exactly.
These are the focus, correct? Okay, thank you.
Yeah, this just helps me.
I appreciate
Sarah,
that.
okay.
Right, but I want to go back to Tom's point because I think that is a very important point. The appearance of this sheet makes it look like the money's all but spent, and it isn't. It's just this is basically some of the requests that seem moderately solid. I say moderately. I'm not saying it's time to start writing checks. But I sincerely think from the amount of email I've gotten on the subject of Sidewalk, a lot of which is con, some of which is pro, that it is light years away from when we're ready to start saying, yes, let's cut checks from ARPA for the sidewalk project. We may not wind up doing it at all. There is a lot of very strong feeling about sidewalks in the east side of Bridge Street, specifically by the cemetery. And consequently, I think we need to move with very deliberate thoughts and not just go screw that. The radar will find all the corpses. We don't have to worry. I think we're going to really be taking that very carefully. As far as the recreation stuff goes, that does sum up to a good bit. I really like the plan that Kara and Grace, is it?
Okay, can I just ask a question about process? Because us making a recommendation to the select board doesn't make the select board allocate it. And if the
No, it
grant,
doesn't.
if the condition of the recommendation is that it's matching for a grant, and that condition doesn't happen, then the funds come back to the ARPA committee to say,
Right.
where else would you like to
Right.
spend those funds? So
Exactly.
you can, I wanted to Tom's question of, are we going to decide on how to recommend all 1.2 million now? Or are we going to make some recommendations, see where they go and see if they come, if the funds come back to us and that kind of situation. So that's why I moved this question for us to start this process to make a decision, whether we're going to turn this down or accept it, and to understand what our process is for any project moving forward. So that's why I've made this, so that we can actually make a decision
Right.
tonight on what we want to do and how we want to do it.
Right. And
Sounds
my
like from Jeff that we may not find out when there's a yes or a no. So we're
What
gonna
do you mean
commit
by- I
money,
don't know.
we're
I
gonna,
don't know what you
we're
mean.
gonna commit money and we're not gonna find out for months.
Correct.
it's not, we've got to remember,
Spend all
commit
1.2 in months.
is not
Correct.
a set in stone word. We would be making a recommendation to the select board. The select board could then say, we are going to put a circle around $150,000 worth of money and make sure that we don't allocate that to something else out of the ARPA pot until we hear yay or nay on the Bruhn grant. That money it's in a bank account getting interest drawn on it even as we speak. If we say yes, we go ahead, select where we think it's a reasonable idea, you do with it as you will. The money doesn't flow for quite some time. And in fact, if something else came along, and let's just say September, and the select board said, we'll pay for the library out of this, but this opportunity over here is a once in a lifetime thing, the select board can change its mind. This is just basically saying, is there some reason we think this is a terrible idea, or do we think this is one worth going forward with, subject to all the stipulations that we may not get it and we may not know for a while?
Got to start somewhere.
I hope we get the grant, but Jeff has said himself that this is not, it's a very competitive grant.
So I'm ready to vote.
Okay,
What-
if you're all ready to vote, go
Ready
ahead
to
and state
vote?
your name and your vote.
Kara, I.
Jeff, aye.
Mary, I.
Eric, I.
Tom, did you vote?
Still thinking. Go ahead and vote. I'm gonna vote, I'm gonna vote no. I don't think we're quite ready. I don't think we have all of the projects
That's fair.
for firm numbers on
It's
the
yes,
projects
no.
that are before us.
Your vote?
Nope.
Jay, are you voting?
Yeah, I was just making, I haven't heard Tom. I would vote aye.
And
You voted what?
Okay.
did Maya,
Aye.
did you?
Yes, she voted. Everybody's voted.
Okay, so I will communicate this to Jeff and we will see what, and to Lori, and we'll see what steps, if any, need to be taken in the short term. Again, if we need to be able to put down on the grant application that this is going to, that we think it's great, the select board may indeed have to take a vote before that can be committed. I think they probably will.
And the
So
motion
Jeff,
was up to 150, Jay. So if you hear it's only 100, you'll come back to us with that.
Sure.
Thank you.
And there's
Okay.
10 days away from the application deadline from right
Right.
now.
Okay, so our second agenda item, well, third really, because we had the minutes first.
Digitizing land records.
Yes, that is just a discussion point. It's, as I've said earlier, this is a project that has seemed on many occasions to be I think the phrase is not a bad idea. But there's no, the documents have been in paper form for 200 years. I don't think that waiting 6 months is going to end the world. I just wanted to, because it is something that in general, people have seemed fairly positive about, to see if anybody had any thoughts about this topic.
Yeah, can I ask, I thought Linda was, I had gone to Linda because you had asked me to, and I didn't know if she had given to Josh or you estimates for digitizing records, because it was not just digitizing the land records. We asked for her to get a price to digitize the zoning records as well. Do you recall this?
I don't have a response back on that,
Okay.
but that's,
So
but
I
that's
think
certainly,
I think we have to table this until we actually know if she was going to use any of her reserves, what amount of reserves was going toward the project, and what amount she needed from the ARPA fund, and what the different departments that were having records digitized were, because there was discussion whether it was assessor's records, whether it was zoning records, and whether it was land records. So to digitize all of those, because COVID showed that it was a very, very much needed situation, especially if the offices were closed.
Right.
So since we haven't heard back and have those final numbers for us to even talk about, I'd like to recommend that we table
Right.
this.
I would like to ask Duncan, since Duncan, you're in Vermont and I'm in Puerto Rico. Could you make a note to check with Linda about the question Kara just raised?
Or actually, Josh, she might have given it to Josh too.
Yeah, well, Duncan and Josh kind of share a hive mind, so.
This will likely have to go through our procurement process. I am anticipating, likely over $100,000. So it would seem to me that what the process that should be done is to put together a request for proposals. And perhaps there's a draft one that VLCT has. I don't know. I mean, it seems like we can't be the only one.
I think it was just for her to get an estimate and to let us know if she was using her reserves. That was my question, is there are reserves for certain land records. So I wanted to know how much money she was using from her reserves. And
I
then she
agree.
was getting estimates, but I know I agree with the RFP, but we just needed to have some kind of idea and understand her plan.
Right,
Yep.
so, the request, my request, I would agree with Kara that the request should be to Linda to come up with a process. I'm not sure she's gonna know what the quote is unless we have pretty clear,
She was told what you all had discussed before.
Right, and I do recall emailing her about that, and I don't have the response
Correct.
back. I was checking. But Duncan, if you could walk in and very,
She
very
was
gently
getting
poke her with a
estimate.
stick.
She was getting an estimate from the company that was already doing work, the current land records, as the current land records came in. These are the historical land records that she was needing the bulk of the money for. So she was going to the company that was already working for us to get an estimate.
so just so the rest of the committee knows, we do have I think it's $169,000 in a reserve fund for land record restoration. I think it's what the title.
So we may in the end not need a penny of this.
Correct.
Yeah, Linda had asked for this money. Linda was one of the first to say, can I have the money? In fact, at one point she was like, and when can you write the check? I'm like, oh, not so fast. But I would like to make sure that we really understand what's in the scope and what other sources of funding are available. And that's something I've asked her for, and I have not gotten really much of a substantial answer back. So between Duncan and I, we'll nudge her.
Well, she might still be waiting for the estimate from the company since we added more things than just the historical land records.
But we're
Yeah.
also kind of looking for percentages on, like, is it planning, is it administration, is it water sewer, what is the breakdown of
Yep.
what that might be? That would be two things we could start working on.
Yes, thank you.
Cool.
More would be better.
Okay. Okay, the next item on the agenda, Kara, this is your show. Would you like to share anything, or is it?
Actually, I did send you an email. I'll just
Mm-hmm.
give the committee an update on what's going on. I introduced the UVM student to the recreation committee. They most definitely wanted her to create an existing design, which she actually had done for a class. So that was very easy for her to present to them, and to create a proposed design with recommendations for what she could see, how the park could be improved. She did that. She presented that to the rec committee. but she did that by, I introduced her to Pete Goslin and met with Pete Goslin, and he did a walk around the whole park so that she could see what was where, like the underground utilities, and to take into account different things, scenarios of what has been maintained through the years. The Recreation Committee liked the plan, liked the idea, but there was a miscommunication between the Rec Committee and an understanding what they thought Jay had said, that they could only ask for what they had already asked for, presented to the ARPA committee. So that was clarified, and they knew that we could present more. But they then met with the zoning administrator of the town of Richmond, who said they couldn't do anything. So there was some miscommunication there as well. I've been in contact because I became a floodplain expert before Tropical Storm Irene with the D-firms, the digital floodplain maps for the town of Richmond. We can do things in the park. It's a process, and it's a process that for me to continue on with this UVM student and to get the pricing into the different pieces of the recommendations for the changes, the proposed park stuff, I need to know if, and I'm asking really clearly to Jay and Jeff, if this is a project they would like to see move forward, because I don't wish to have this UVM student put their time into getting the pricing, or me to work with helping the state or the zoning administrator, who is limited by what is how he reads the black and white versus what the state and the federal government will allow us to do. It's a lot of time. And if 2 select board members are opposed to it, then it's really not worth my time to proceed. But I do want to let you know, the rec committee had been talking to people. People were actually talking about this at the town meeting. And a lot of people were really excited because it not only could help with the park and wellness and all of those pieces to the puzzle, it might help alleviate some of the issues of recreational stuff on Cochrane Road if a paved and dirt path was around the whole perimeter of the park.
Kara, I'd just like to say this select board member is very much behind it, because when you look at the overall suggestions that came in from our residents, our citizens, recreational opportunities were, very, very high up. Not just the ones asking for community centers and pools and stuff like that, but just, stuff to enhance quality of life and health. I think that, and as you pointed out in your email to me, the town does have the ability to temporarily waive ordinances for certain projects. If we build a basketball court, if we build a Gaga pit and it floods now and then, we just have to make sure that it's made out of materials that can survive being inundated. But I think those are issues that we can work out. So I would like to see your student go forward with it.
Thank you. It's flood mitigation measures that you have to put in place as well. So there's a whole different, there's a lot of detail and a lot of factor, but I appreciate hearing that from you. I'd like to hear from Jeff as well, because I have no problem, and I want to hear from the rest of the committee too, but specifically if the 2 select board members are opposed to it, then the committee could be for it, but they have the deciding vote on how the money is spent.
Well, first I'd like to hear from Mary, that you had your.
I think improvements at Volunteers Green are extremely important. To me, more of the community of Richmond citizens use that park than I get to say it, hooligans, that's not a swear, that run about Cochrane Road. I think increasing the access, the use, the availability of Volunteers Green, which is an asset wholly owned with no easement requirements that would be required if somebody wanted to tread on my land, which ain't gonna happen. So I really support this project, and whatever we need to support it, I back it. I think it's great. I think this is also a once in a lifetime opportunity where we have a student that is volunteering. This is a project, and this is a measure of pride to carry forth something that will be completed during hopefully their term at the university. Thank you.
And to be clear, the rest of the committee, if the select board members think I should go forward, you will have a whole proposal to review. I mean, there'll be value, there'll be dollar amounts per different piece to the recommended proposed changes to the park. The state made some recommendations, so that design that you saw, Jay, would then change too. So I don't want the committee to think I'm looking for your endorsement or anything like that without seeing and knowing. So I just need to know what the select.
But so Jeff, go ahead and share your thoughts.
Well, I'd like to see what the proposal is. So a lot of the current proposal that's on the table from the Recreation Committee doesn't really fit our guidelines very well. You know, they aren't long-term capital improvements. They are, a lot of them are consumables. I would call a consumer trash can. You know, it's not really long-term improvements. So I believe I was excited that you were doing this.
Okay.
Because it seemed to me that a plan for the volunteer screen, rather than replacing aging equipment, is a more appropriate use of ARPA funds. But without seeing what that plan is, I can't say that I would agree with it, all of it.
Thank you. I was not looking for a total green light, but because of the first roadblock with the rec committee thinking that nothing else could be done other than what they presented, the second roadblock of the zoning meter saying nothing could be done other than what's there, could only be maintained. It became roadblock after roadblock that I said, I've got to read the signs and see if you would like this to continue. This is a lot of hours to make this happen, but I'm willing to put in the extra hours to make sure the student continues to gather the information for the pricing and those kinds of things. But I didn't want her to waste her time either. So, and the rest of the committee, you guys want, I don't mean to cut you off. I just wanted to make sure that if these two weren't behind it, I was done.
Kara, do me a favor, and the thing that I like best about your proposal is the paved and gravel walking riding path around the green. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Well, there's a lot of pieces to that proposal, Jay. So I really would like to present to the rest of the committee. There's not a lot to say about that. The visual does a lot for them. And because you've seen the visual, you're envisioning it right now versus explaining it. But what it was is it's going to be the size of, it's about 5 feet wide. It's about the size of a sidewalk, paved all the way around, and it would go not along the river, but along the tree line along the river, all the way to the back, out back. And there's a proposed, I'm going to talk about it. There's a proposed area for a dog parkway out back. And then when you come back around the parking lot near it would go up behind the parking lot where that knoll is to the road, to the sewer plant, all along between the houses and the drive that you park to go out back, and crossing over where Stone's Throw tends to have people walk across to go to the park, around where the monument is, around the newly paved parking lot, up the little hill where there's a sewer
Hookup.
concrete tank, up to back along the river to go all the way back down to along the river. That was proposed to be paved. The highway crew said that they could plow it through the winter months, just like they plow the sidewalks, and proposing a smaller gravel path beside it for those people who want to run on gravel versus on pavement. And it was thought that people could be on it of all ages, seniors, all the way to children learning to ride their bike. The calculation of the mileage of what the distance was in the process when we got told you can't do anything. So it was like, where do we go from here? The state of Vermont says that's not an issue at all. That is, you're not elevating anything there. You're going to just go at grade with that. So that's not the path is most definitely not an issue.
Right. And the reason I specified that in particular is when you think about killing multiple birds with one stone, removing the need for recreational or exercise walkers and runners who just want a safe place to walk, get them off Cochrane Road and give them a safe place to do that. And then the health benefits of, again, giving people a safe and secure place to recreate. And And in terms of capital investments, a path, especially one that the town highway department can pave and plow and maintain, I think that's a great use of ARPA money. And so that's just one of the several things about the plan that Kara and her friend have been working on. But again, Kara, as she said, was waiting to kind of, is this even worth pursuing before we bring the whole plan before you? But I think when you see the plan, I think A, you're going to be very impressed by the work that this young lady has put into it, and B, I think you'll probably be sold. But it will be up to each of you to make your own decision. I think it's a pretty impressive plan.
And I just want to say this, I did not come to the ARPA committee thinking about this at all. This was not something until I got here and then saw the whole list of everything that had to do with and hearing, and I've been to all the select board meetings, hearing about the issues with Cochrane Road. And it's just something that the pieces to the puzzle started to coming together. Like Molly was bringing up a lot of points with the wellness and the mental health and all of that. And I kept thinking most of our recreational stuff that we've done can tend to be age restrictive, like, the Andrews Forest and things like that, because they can't be on uneven ground and stones and tripping and stuff like that. I mean, I have right. Well, my 84-year-old father who could walk on something like that, but couldn't be on concrete sidewalks that have different levels to them. It just meant something to me. It all clicked. The playground equipment, we don't even need to go there right now. I'm just saying, by doing anything at the park, you cover all age groups.
Well, it depends on what you do. So like, are there other features to this proposal?
There are, and there will be, and I'll come forward.
Okay.
Jay asked about that one piece so that you can know about that,
Okay.
but I just want you to know, I just got a passion about this because it seemed to fit a bunch of things. So it's like, oh, wow, I never thought of this.
I think as
Okay.
long as there's like a public, input process to all this, I think that's great. And I'm
Yeah.
assuming the recreation committee will be considering it, and those are all open to the public, so that's cool.
Well, there is a problem with the recreation committee because the recreation committee isn't all Richmond residents. So it's going to be more public it's going to be a select board. It'll be a select board public hearings. It'll be ran by the select board.
Development review board.
And there
Have to go through the development review board, wouldn't it?
depends if you have a structural issue, maybe not. It's not a change of use, so not necessarily.
But I'm just saying, I mean, the recreation committee would still.
No,
hear
they'll have
about this.
input, they'll have
Yeah.
input, but my point to you is the meeting would have to be ran by the select board.
That's
So
fine,
the
yeah, Yeah, it doesn't matter to me who runs the meeting as long as the public know about it.
100% agree that it needs to be total public input at the select board, public hearing level, that kind of thing. Yes.
Good.
Okay, so no further action. Go ahead, Jim.
Yeah, can I
Or
just
Tom,
say,
rather. Go, Tom.
yeah, just quick thing here. So, I mean, I'd like to see the proposal. It sounds great so far. In addition to that, though, I'm just curious, though, is there a way, and maybe we should have thought of this a while ago, is there a way to say, by such and such a date, all proposals are submitted so that this committee has fully baked proposals to consider, as opposed to these onesie twosies that get kind of dropped off with us at certain times. That way we can kind of make a coherent, comprehensive decisions about everything that's before us.
Right.
And one of the other things I'd like us to think about, if you don't mind, Jay,
Go
is
ahead.
when you do that deadline day, I totally agree, Tom. I don't have a problem with that at all. But if any of the projects coming before us have the ability to be bond voted on, and think about that as well, because I know the town center we haven't heard from yet, and it's been one of those things that in the beginning, I was all for doing the 1.2 toward the town center. I came into us thinking that's what we needed to do with this money. I'm going to be honest. And then when the town center committee said they were looking at doing major improvements that were going to be 6.8 million or 6 million, I went, well, that sounds like a bond vote to me. And so that the 1.2 should go toward other projects and we do one complete bond for the town center is how my head went. So if the town center committee is coming back and gonna ask for the 1.2 now, which is changed since I've been on since November, I kind of want to have a heads up on that. And if you know that now, I kind of want a heads up on it. But Tom, I agree with you with the date. I have no problem, but I would have had everything ready for you tonight with a full proposal coming from, and the rec committee gave me authority to get the pricing and keeping going forward until the email that came that said can't do anything. So Tom, I'm more than willing to adhere to a deadline. But I do want to say, I kind of want to know, is the town center committee looking for the 1.2?
Okay.
I can say that, you know,
Go ahead,
as
Jeff.
far as that issue goes, I can say that we had not talked about asking for 1.2 million. We recognize that there are a lot of other projects that we never assumed that the entire ARPA money would go towards the town center project, but we are hoping that a significant chunk would, and we're not prepared to make a request yet. I think Tom has a good idea that you know, unless this is an open-ended committee
It might
commitment,
be.
you know, for a long time. I think it would be good for us to have a fully baked proposal.
Well, it might be, because if money gets kicked back, like if we've recommended and it's come back that they are not going to use funds for what we originally recommended it for, it might come back to the ARPA committee.
We got 2 minutes left, Jay, so.
Well, actually, yes, actually, you're absolutely right. I will, not that I don't think these discussions have been worthwhile. I wanted to make a point about the sidewalks, which I briefly made earlier. But the sidewalk, we are still waiting to hear from the Transportation Committee as to whether we got the one grant. We have not, they don't know yet. Second, it's something, we're kind of in a position of leading a huge parade down the street toward the big, shiny goal of sidewalks everywhere. And then we look over our shoulders and there's no one behind us. And so we are going at the next select board meeting, essentially agenda item number 1, or as close to the top as we can possibly get it, is going to be seeking input from people on the subject of sidewalk. And this week we may well allot over an hour, because I think there are going to be a lot of people interested in speaking to that. So we're kind of waiting on those two shoes to drop. The sidewalk public thought and also the grant. So we are certainly not ready to say, let's spend X.
Yeah, are you looking to put on both phases of that sidewalk project that the Transportation Committee presented to us, or just phase 1?
I think we need to be open to input on both of them, but one of them we have a clear price on, the other we're still waiting on the grant. But the East Main Street one, I haven't heard a lot of people complaining about. The one on Bridge Street proper, we've heard a lot. And so the one on Bridge Street proper is the one that I would say is most up in the air.
So Jay, are we going to discuss this tonight, or
No, I think we should wait until after the select board meeting, but I think after that point, we'll have a better sense of where we stand.
First.
Yeah.
Okay, so the only point that I would make relative to the sidewalks is that at town meeting, actually, we approved a budget that included $16,000 for our match on an engineering design of the sidewalk, which a lot of the questions that came up at town meeting and that I've heard relate to engineering. So we won't have answers to any of those questions until and if and when we get that grant and we do
Absolutely. Right. The point is we are far from being ready to start writing checks.
So
Okay.
I would propose at our next meeting.
First, select board, I just want to make sure.
Yeah, well, I would propose for the next ARPA committee meeting that we address what Tom suggested there, is that we discuss as an agenda item, process questions. When are we going to have a full slate of at least existing projects that we have? And when will we start ticking through those projects and making recommendations?
I will absolutely put
great.
that on the agenda. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Jeff.
I like that as the agenda, is talk about process and deadline dates and all of that kind of stuff. And if any of the existing projects, like if the rec project has numbers by then, that'd be fine, but not to delve off until we understand how you guys want to proceed.
I think the volunteer green project, it could take an entire meeting anyway, you know, just through that project,
Okay,
which would be fine with me, actually.
okay.
But did we decide to meet monthly again, or is it every other?
When
It
should
can
this
be whichever. Right now, the general sense was monthly, but if people would like to meet on the second Wednesday in April, I would be delighted to meet with you then.
Can
So
you
we
look
plan
at
on,
when April vacation is and stuff like that? And if I don't know,
It's the last.
Josh
week
is
of April.
gone or anybody.
Yeah, it starts the 24th. So the 24th through the 28th.
So I
Yeah, I won't-
recommend if we can, I don't know if we,
Our meeting would typically be the 19th, wouldn't it?
I don't know, are we the?
it would be the
first
12th, it would be the 12th and the 26th.
Okay, so the 25th is the 26th. I'm not going to be here for that.
Yeah.
Okay, so then it certainly sounds like we need to meet on the 12th.
Can you zoom it in?
I don't know. I don't know if I can or not.
So wait, the 12th is,
The second Wednesday in April.
well, if we don't, if
I could do that.
if
one.
the rec stuff isn't been worked out by then,
Let's just do process.
we'll just do process.
That's
But if
fine.
the rec stuff is worked out, that by then we can do a presentation to start with in case you have more questions, and then we have to go back and get more answers. It could be a multiple meeting situation, because I want to make sure there might be things that we don't think of. That
That's-
you guys,
I think those are good points.
12th would
I
work
think we can
best
do
for
that.
me, and the 26th is sketchy for me.
yes, I can do the 12th.
Same.
Okay, so I think we have a path forward, process and volunteers green maybe, and also see what comes out of the sidewalk discussions. Is there anything else before we ask for motion to adjourn?
I think I
Hey.
moved to adjourn.
Second.
Okay. We have a motion second to adjourn. Any discussion? Seeing none, please state your name and your vote.
Kara,
Aye.
Molly,
aye.
I.
Okay,
Thank you,
then
guys.
okay,
Have fun
thank
in
you so
Puerto
much.
Rico.
Yeah, if I could just get to feeling not so tired. Thank you all for coming and I will look forward to talking to you soon.
Thank you, Jay.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Bye.